What is going on? Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Beyond the Tape. Today, we're switching sides of the ball. We're going to talk defensive line. I know I haven't gotten to my big uglies on the offensive side yet. That will probably be next week. But joining the show, as you can see, is PFF's own Max Chadwick. Max wanted to talk defensive line with me, so I said, hey, you know what? I can cater to that schedule. Plus, I started with edge. That was probably the second position group, if my memory holds, that I actually got started on. So excited to talk about these guys. We're going to talk 12 edge rushers, 8 interior guys. But Max, of course, want to welcome you back to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, dude. It's good to talk to you again, man. It's going to be fun breaking this class down today. I think it's some really, really fun talent, especially in this edge class this year. I think it could be a really good class at that position.
Yeah, I think it's going to be another year where we're going to go down to Mobile. We'll run into each other. We'll do hopefully some stuff in person. And we're going to be talking about like, oh my God, dude, like there's this guy and then that guy I'm pumped up to see, but this guy's a different flavor. So how does that stack up? Oh, don't forget this small school guy. I feel like there's going to be a lot of these names that this is almost a Senior Bowl early preview, but let's not jump the shark. We'll see if we get there. But awesome. Max, let's go ahead and kick things off with the edge group, starting with number 12. I'm going to go with Kenyatta Jackson here. And, this is definitely a bit of a projection pick for me. And there's one other guy that you really could say is in the same kind of boat. And you could flip their rankings. I'm not too firm on this. There's definitely a couple of projection guys here. But sometimes I like to put a projection guy next to a guy I feel a little bit safer about. Sometimes I just like to bundle them up that way. So Kenyatta Jackson comes in at my number 12, former top 75 recruit coming out of high school. I mean, he's going to Ohio State. I mean, that's almost a given, right? Like almost assuredly a former highly touted recruit. But I like the body type, kind of fits the billing of what you would want to build an edge rusher to look like, 6'6", 260. And also a lot of different, alignments on the defensive line, some reps where he's a stand-up rusher, some with his hand in the dirt. That's kind of exciting. And all in all, it's just flashes right now. There's just some moments where you see, oh, God, 260. There's some good get off there. There's some good speed. And then, of course, he does bring a lot of power, and I think that could translate to the next level as a run defender. The big negative I have on him, and the big reason maybe he's 12, maybe he's higher, maybe he's lower by the time we get to next May or next April, I should say. It's just kind of a small sample size, not a whole lot that we've gotten to see. Even the pass rush win rate, not necessarily the best that we're going to see on today's sidebar graphics. So definitely projection, but he's just one of these guys where Ohio State coaches these guys up. He's got the traits. He's got the build. I feel pretty good about projecting him forward. If he is who I think he's going to be, I think he's going to be a solid, probably back end of day 2 kind of guy. Not going to light the world on fire as someone you add to your defensive line, not your first round guy, but definitely a functional piece of that rotation. How do you see Jackson?
Yeah, I liked him too. He didn't make my top 12 because you mentioned the sample size. Like he was obviously a backup last year behind Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, but good athlete. He tested out as like a 95th percentile athlete in our game athleticism score metric. So he's a very good athlete. He's got the size you look for, right? 6'6", 265. And he flashed on tape when he was out there. Now, of course, like I said, the reason why he's not on my list is because he has a very small sample size. But now with those two gone at Ohio State right now, I could see Kenyatta Jackson emerging as, like you said, like a day 2 talent, maybe even as a huge year, maybe even a first round talent because he has the measurables you look for in a potential first round edge defender. So again, a guy that, I still need to see first before I put him in my top 10 or anything like that, but certainly has all the talent in the world to really emerge in next year's edge class.
And then that takes us to my number 11. So again, I like grouping some of these guys where like a little bit of a projection with, I'm pretty sure I know who Gabe Yakas is at this point. But another one of these, and you're going to hear this a ton in this video, big-bodied, physical defensive lineman who can play edge, but ultimately might be better served as a 3-4 defensive end, or once you get into, third and longs, maybe you get this guy a little bit more on the interior. But big body, this screams Senior Bowl guy. And I mean, Illinois had Pat Bryant go, like this guy absolutely screams like Senior Bowl incoming. You also look at PFF pass rush grade, 83.3 last year, rock solid number there. I think for his size, pretty solid lateral movement. I think you see a little bit more of that when he's facing into your offensive lineman. I think it pops a little bit more there. And you see Illinois kind of moving him around. Wrestling background's always a big plus for me. I just, offensive line, defensive line, love that. It's all about leverage, hand placement. That background really caters to that. And, this is something that the NFL Stock Exchange, they pointed out. His goal line stands, I just had to shout this out too. His goal line stands against Michigan are top stuff. If you watch nothing else of Gabe Yakas, watch those reps. And it's kind of a similar projection for where I think Kenyatta Jackson's going to land up. Probably not the greatest pass rusher in the class, almost assuredly not the best pass rusher in this class, but going to be a rock-solid run defender. He'll win with power. He'll win with motor. And I will say, 6'3" is almost kind of becoming my ideal build for an edge rusher, assuming the arm length fits, billing. because there's something about that leverage battle, and again, his wrestling background that really excites me. So assuming, and his arms look pretty long on tape, so I think he's going to check that box. So I think really good power, consistently wins with leverage, rock solid floor as a run defender, and then just kind of the negatives. I don't think he's like the most explosive athlete. So when you see the reps of him as a stand-up rusher, I just don't really foresee that as his future at the next level. We'll see. Also, something you're going to hear a lot in this video, obviously because it just came out, Bruce Feldman Freak List member here in Gabe Yakis. So I did want to shout that out. I won't tell you what number because you should definitely have an Athletic subscription. If you like listening to me talk, you should get a subscription to the Athletic. I think the first year you do it, it's like $1 a month. Like it's a no-brainer for you out there. So go read that article. You'll see Gabe Yakis on there, but rock solid power edge rusher. And I think at this point, this is kind of where I project Kenyatta Jackson going forward is kind of where I see Gabe Yakis right now.
Yeah, I think Yakis, like you said, the powerful player it shows on tape, right? And he actually had an 83 pass rush grade for PFF last year, so he was a pretty good pass rusher. The run defense, in theory, like sometimes it is very good. Like that bowl game in South Carolina, he was really good in run defense. I remember.
The grade overall is not super sexy, though.
Yeah, like he had like a 59 run defense grade last year. There's some plays where he just gets washed out on tape, and you want to see him play a little stronger against the run. He's had 65 or below run defense grades for his entire career. So I want to see the run defense improve a little bit, but he really took a huge step as a pass rusher last year for Illinois. And for a team that has legitimate playoff aspirations in 2025 because of how much talent they brought back from last year's 10-win team, Yakis is going to be probably the leader of that defense next year.
Yeah, and again, when not really in love with the stand-up edge rusher reps, not the most explosive, not the most flexible, not going to win with Ben, but again, something you're going to hear a lot. This is an edge rusher that would rather go through you than around you. And yeah.
I was going to say he's more like I would think of him as like a 3-4 defensive end. That might be his best role long-term in the NFL. So I like that call out, though, because he is definitely a name to know as a hybrid edge D tackle in next year's draft.
And part of the reason, and eventually I will parse that down. Right now, I just like to put these guys in the edge bucket early on. And then once we get through the combine, and also once I get 2025 tape, right, like let me see what they look like this year before I fully put them on the IDL bucket. But I mean, Yakis, and then there's probably 3 other names that immediately come off the bat off the top of my head. Yeah, at least 3 other names where if you told me they're a 3-4 DN at the next level, wouldn't shock me whatsoever. But the problem with that is, and I struggle with this a lot because as much as I want to talk about 3-4-4-3, nickel is kind of the new base. So to me, it's kind of just like early down. He probably head up over the tackle, maybe just outside of it. But then maybe in obvious passive situations, he becomes a guy that stunts and twists, get him inside. Like I could see this guy like a Dan Quinn fit, right? Like he could play some outside on early downs, moves into the interior. Quinn utilized a lot of stunts and twists. I could totally see where he's kind of that type of a fit. I think it's a really fun discussion. And now we pivot into the almost complete opposite direction with Cassius Howell. So 6'4", 245, but another senior and a really fun watch. And he's not quite in this bucket where I have, spoiler alert, R. Mason Thomas and David Bailey are going to be on this list. I'm not quite as in love with Howell as I am with those two. Not that they're like 1 and 2 on this list, but nevertheless, twitched up stand-up rusher. And one of the best spin moves you'll see in this class. And there's a couple guys, and one guy who didn't make my list, Max Llewellyn, another guy, big guy, wicked spin move. There's a couple of these guys with that specific inside counter that is just like, whoa, really pops off the tape. But I think really nice change of direction. Obviously has the bend around the corner that you want to see for someone of his archetype of an edge rusher. And really, kind of you look at Gabe Yakis and that goal line stand against Michigan. Like, if you're not going to watch anything, watch that. Watch Cassius Howell against Will Campbell. And one that highlights unless you're a Patriots fan, it'll highlight the concerns that people had about Will Campbell, but it showcases, whoa, who's this guy? There might be something here. So really fun player. But that being said, on the smaller side, and also another guy with a little bit of a smaller sample size. That's part of the reason there's a little bit of a gap here for him versus someone like an R. Mason Thomas or a David Bailey. Only one game last year where he was like a full-on true starter through and through, and it's because Shamar Stewart, Nick Scorton sat out, but he had 7 pressures in that game. So I think there's something there. So I'm excited about Cassius Howell. I think this could be the year where his breakout opportunity comes to fruition, and we get to see him rise up these rankings. Where do you stand on Howell?
Yeah, I have him 11 on my list. I like the call out here, and I think he's one of my picks to be one of the biggest breakout stars in college football in 2025. I think, what you saw from him last year in limited duty, because obviously you got Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart there, who both should have been first-round picks in my opinion. I think what he showed though in as a rotational guy was really, really impressive. He's had 90+ pass rush grades in each of the last 2 years at Bowling Green and then at Texas A&M. This past year, you mentioned the twitched up athlete. He's been above like the 98th percentile of our gas score in 2 of the last 3 years too. He flashes a lot on tape. He's another guy. The only reason he's number 11 for me right now is that the snap count isn't as high as some of the other guys I have in my list, but he is absolutely a guy that could have a huge breakout year next year at Texas A&M and become one of the top edge rushers in the country in the NFL draft.
And apologies, I make the graphics here. Forgot to put the transfer there from Texas A&M. So if you were wondering, whoa, Arkansas, when did they get Shamar Stewart and Nick Stewart? No. He's transferred now a couple times, so we'll have to fire the graphics guy. But no, I agree with you. Definitely a breakout candidate. And on a small sample size, albeit, but 91.3 pass rush grade from PFF, like that's something that immediately you're like, whoa, okay, who is this guy? So even just like before I even watched it, I was like, okay, we might have a little sleeper here. And then again, kind of on the different end of the spectrum, I'm going to go to Dennis Sutton. He is my edge number 9. Really good football player, though. And I actually think towards the end of the season, he started to peak. Like he started to show his best football towards the end of the season. So I'm actually very encouraged and intrigued where we go into this season. But 75 overall PFF pass rush grade, just over 70 run defense grade, just an NFL plus body, looks the type. And kind of that similar boat of Gabe Yakas where it's like, probably not a guy you're drafting, and he's gonna be the face of that defensive line. He's gonna change the complexion of everything that you have. But he's gonna be a rock solid run defender, a good contributor into this, and another one of these guys that wouldn't shock me if you're saying, hey, 3-4 defensive end might be in his future. Plays upright. That's kind of my one big negative, and sometimes it's a little tough for a guy who's 6'6". Can you get low? Can you win that leverage battle? But again, I think that started to get a little bit better. I think we started to see a little bit more athleticism from him down the stretch last year for Penn State. So was that just a couple of games? Was it just how I was feeling watching tape that day? I'm very interested to see where we go into 2025. And of course, Abdul Carter, he is now kind of all spotlights on him for when it comes to, that pass rush there at Penn State. Him and Zane Durant, who we'll talk about later on when we get to the interior guys. So tonight, Dennis Sutton, tell me what you think about him.
Yeah, big fan of him. I had him number 6 on my list, and I'm with you. I think he has all the tools in the world. Obviously, great size and length position, good explosiveness too. He's a guy who's a former 5-star coming out of high school, and he's been really good at Penn State in his past years. Not a superstar yet like Abdul Carter or even Micah Parsons was at Penn State, but he's a guy that I think could really emerge and be potentially a first-round pick in 2026. He's been the most valuable edge rusher returning to college football. The second most valuable, over the last 2 years, and then 75 pressures over the last 2 years too, is only behind TJ Parker, who's going to be much higher, I think, on both of our lists probably too. So, like I said, all the tools in the world. He's a guy that I'm with you on he plays a little too upright right now, but love the length, love the size, love the explosiveness. I think Dennis Sutton could emerge as a first-round pick next year.
And if he does, it's kind of like when we left Mobile, and there was like some chatter, and obviously didn't come to fruition, but like, there were some people saying, Landon Jackson, don't be surprised if he just sneaks in the first round. He just does so many little things right, and he's so easy to get on the field. You could just see a team ultimately, like the Bills who take him in the second round. You could see a team like that where it's like, you know what, we'll do it here at 30. I could see that type of world where, hey, we just need that right edge rusher. We're going to plug and play. We're going to get a ton of run out of him, and I could totally see that in his future.
Yeah,
now,
he could be I'm just going to say it's going to be the 3rd straight Penn State edge to go in the first round after chopping and Abdul Carter. So we'll see if it continues.
And it's amazing. And we'll see what type of, testing we get from Dennis Sutton. I do think he's a good linear explosive athlete. Generally pretty good change of direction too for his size. Overall, pretty solid athlete. I'm interested to see where, maybe like the 3-cone looks for him. Mm-hmm. But he is very different from Chop and Abdul Carter. So it is kind of cool just to see a different flavor coming out of that program. And then here we go. Holy projection, folks. Mateo Uiagalelei. He feels like the polarizing prospect when you talk about edge rushers, and somehow professional fence sitter TJ has smacked him smack dab in the middle of these rankings. I am who I am. But 6'5", 270. He is a junior, so no even guarantee that he comes out. He just turned 20 years old, and that's kind of a tough thing to quantify when you do summer scouting, because you can see some stuff from last year, and then you hear, oh God, he just turned 20. Oh, geez, what are we in for next year? And maybe I'm baking that a little too much here, but it's summer scouting. These things are going to change. It's a fluid process, so I'm not too stuck on this. But former top 50 recruits, and when you see his pass rush reps, I mean, big, powerful, body type, high motor, and I mean, he's got a couple of reps where he'll just toss a dude aside. And I also think he's got a pretty wide range of moves that he wants to bring to the table. the big negative is like for someone who's 270 pounds, like he has just got to get better against the run. And I don't know if it's, a lack of desire to do that, if he's just singularly focused on being the best pass rusher possible. I'm not sure. But that's one big thing this year where your body type, you come with certain expectations. And I want to see that specifically against the run. So I do think that is kind of the one big negative. And I can see where there's a lot of people who are a little iffy on him. So intrigued with where he goes, big body type, long strides, and that helps with the closing speed too. So definitely a big time projection, but I think there's something there in that pass rush profile that can make him really interesting, but he's got to play like he's 6'5", 270 more consistently.
Yeah, I agree with that. I had him edge 12. I don't necessarily see him as a first round caliber pick right now, but I could definitely see him as a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. And you mentioned the run defense. Yeah, I think it was like a 65 run defense career, something like that last year. I think the numbers pass rush wise are a little misleading. I think, I think he had like 10 sacks or something like that last year. Yeah. So everyone thinks he's like the best pass rusher in the country. I think his win rate wasn't great last year. He's not a guy who's a lot of it was unblocked or cleanup sacks too. So I think he's a very good pass rusher. I'm not saying he's not a good pass rusher, but I don't think he's necessarily as good as the 10 or 11 sacks that he had last year. So I like him. I think he's a very powerful player. I don't think he's got great bend or anything like that either. Obviously, as a 270-pound edge rusher, you're probably not going to have that either. But he's got a lot of potential. I'm excited to see what he can do in his third year at Oregon. He's still a very young player, too. He's only 20 years old. But I do want to see him take the next step as a run defender and also be a little more efficient as a pass rusher, too, because it wasn't the best last year. I believe he had like a 15% pass rush win rate, which is solid, but something special. That's the one thing for him right now. I think he's just a solid passer for more than a guy that is one of the 5 or so best in the country.
And to me, I see a good athlete in there, but he's another one of these guys who just plays upright. And I don't know if that's just him and he just needs a little bit more work with coaching, or maybe I'm just seeing an athlete that's not really there specifically in his hips. So I'm interested in that. And then sometimes against the run, specifically the thing I felt like I was noticing, sometimes he's just a little late off the ball. And sometimes it's just that half second of a difference where someone's just getting to a spot before you and they're initiating contact. They're getting you blown off the ball versus the other way around. So again, just want to see that even out. But with his power and his length and overall frame, man, there's something there for as a pass rusher. But he's one of these guys that almost certainly won't hold at 8 throughout the year. He'll either skyrocket up, or we're talking about him again maybe next year as someone who's coming out in the 2027 draft. So really interested to see where that goes. But, I just had to find a way to put him smack dab in the middle of my rankings, the most polarizing edge prospect possible. And then we get R. Mason Thomas here at 7. So I have him, and then, spoiler, number 6 is David Bailey. I'd put him in a bucket.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, you could argue my 1 through 5 is in and of itself a bucket onto its own. But R. Mason Thomas, 6'2", 240, senior at Oklahoma. I mean, when you envision a 6'2", 240 edge rusher and like the first step get off that would come with someone who has, pass rush win rate's actually not as high as you would think, but nonetheless, 35 pressures, 9 sacks, you would think this guy's got to have a wicked first step and a ton of bend. And like, he absolutely does. He fits that speed, kind of pass rush profile. And then I think about how Brent Venables uses him too. And like, that kind of excites me too. And this guy who knows how to scheme up pressure. And I just think about, again, another, like, not necessarily a Dan Quinn type, but someone who can just dial it up. Maybe it's Vance Joseph, or someone who can just get creative with these really good athletes and put them in these advantageous opportunities, stunts, twists, things like that. There's something about that gets really, really exciting. I also do think for someone on the lighter side, he does just enough as a run defender for me to put him here. And because of that, you could argue maybe he should be ahead of Patrick Bailey, not to David Bailey, not to get too far ahead of myself. But all in all, really like the first step, like the bend. And I think his hand placement and his hand fighting really is more of what excites me. And sometimes he'll catch it off as a tackle and he'll just fight for so long that eventually it turns into like a speed to power rep, just because he has ultimately displaced the hands of the offensive tackle. And now he's the one smacking his hands into the chest of that OT. So just I think a rock solid player from that standpoint. And when you see that type of hand placement, it's like, okay, this guy gets it, especially as a senior. You're like, okay, that plus his athleticism, I'm willing to bank on it. And some guys at 240, they get blown off the ball. I don't think Thomas is that, but he's definitely one of these guys who, like, first down at the NFL level might be few and far between for R. Mason Thomas. But you're not another OU, not to helmet scout here, but if he could be like a Nick Benito type, or even like a Quindarius Robinson, another Bronco actually. We haven't even seen him play an NFL snap, but something like that where rundowns may not be his thing, but if you made this guy into a designated pass rusher, get him in, you're up by a touchdown in the fourth quarter, let this guy wreak havoc. you could have a lot of upside there. So it's going to take the right scheme, but I love the athleticism. I love how he keeps his hands fighting throughout the play.
Yeah, I was literally going to make the Nick Bonino call too. I think he's more of like a Bonino type where he's like a designated pass rusher, but he could be a very good one at that at the NFL level. He had the second best true pass rush grade last year behind Josiah Stewart in the entire country. So he was a very good pass rusher last year for Oklahoma. Again, the run defense will never be good as a sub 250-pound edge rusher, but he's a guy that I really enjoyed watching too. I didn't have him in my top 12. He would have been, I think, 13 for me if we extended it by one more player. But he's a guy that I like the explosiveness. I love the pass rushing, and I'm excited to see what he could do. And like I said, I think as a designated pass rusher in the NFL, he could be a very successful player in that role.
And to not helmet scout, Josiah Stewart's honestly probably another good comparison here to where, like, especially on a defense that has Khalil Mack and Tuli Tuipulotu who stop the run well. I don't believe we're going to see Josiah Stewart fielding many first downs this year. But 3rd and 13, you can bet he's going to be out there and he's going to pin his ears back. So that's kind of the future forward. But I'm really excited. It's a big year for OU. I was just rewatching y'all's SEC preview the other day, and dude, that's going to be an interesting squad. But we'll save that conversation for after the edge rankings. And then as spoiled, David Bailey. I kind of put these guys in a bucket. David Bailey, he barely played against the run last year. Like, Stanford did not make it. They made it very obvious, I should say. This guy is just not going to be a very good run defender. And part of that's just, he's listed at 6'3", 240. I'm curious to see what Texas Tech, if they've been able to add some muscle, add some bulk there. Could he change that complexion? But I don't know if I've seen this wide of a PFF grade split before. 93.2 pass rush grade, 59.3 run defense grade. So, everyone in the stadium knew the strengths of David Bailey. That being said, dude, when he's out there, holy cow, shot out of a cannon might be an understatement. This guy's first step is unbelievable. Another guy with a really nice inside spin move as that type of counter, because you have to respect him and what he can do to your outside shoulder as a tackle. And then he just, not Euro steps, but he spins back inside and he does it in the blink of an eye. And it's just like no win situation there for an offensive tackle. A ton of bend. Also 5 forced fumbles last year. I think that just kind of speaks to his burst, right? Like, he's just not only beating tackles to a spot, but he's catching quarterbacks off guard. But the big negative is here, barring something, miraculous this year where Texas Tech has just bulked this man up, just not going to be an early down contributor. And like, again, R. Mason Thomas, at least I think he can set an edge. Like, there's at least a couple of moments of it where you're like, okay, the bare minimum. There we go. Like, David Bailey, I don't even know if we really saw that. So kind of a tough prospect, but for what he is as like a pure pass rusher and almost certainly a DPR at the next level, this is as good as it gets. Like, this is like, you could see him becoming unique Ngakoue, kind of that type. And Ngakoue's entire career wasn't great, but like, there was that couple year stretch where you're like, holy cow, dude, this guy just can't help himself but win these pass rush reps. So, and there's probably other better examples of these pure DPR types. But dude, David Bailey, really fun to watch, especially if you're just watching the pass rush reps.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of the 2023 tape we saw from John Joyner at Minnesota, where it was just this guy's one of the best pass rushers in the country, and he is unplayable in run defense. Joyner is a little more extreme, I think, than David Bailey was, because his numbers were, I think he had like a 40 run defense grade and like a 92 pass rush grade. Like, that was crazy. Bailey is, again, like in that R. Mason Thomas mold, though. It's like, okay, this is a DPR. Josiah Stewart, DPR. Even though I think Stewart was a pretty good run defender for what his size was at Michigan. Yeah. But Bailey, you're right. Like, I think the moves are outstanding. I'm excited to watch him at Texas Tech this year. They have him listed now at 6'3", 250. So that is good if he got up to 250 now. But yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's a guy that was one of the best pass rushers in college football. You can even argue he's a top 3 or 4 pass rusher in college football last year. Now going over to Texas Tech now and what's a loaded portal class that Texas Tech brought in. I'm excited to see what he could do in the Big 12. But yeah, I think David Bailey, where he was 9 for me, I believe. So yeah, I would have had him and R. Mason Thomas very close to each other. There's another guy, I don't know if he's going to be on your list too, but he's kind of in that mold too of just, I don't know if he's big enough to play run defense, but man, he brings it as a pass rusher. I think David Bailey is a really fun bet, and probably right now my favorite designated pass rusher in the 2026 draft.
Yeah, strongly agree there. And it's one of those things where, yeah, if it's at 250 and it's like the right 10 pounds you add, that can make a world of difference. So maybe that's just enough. And pass rush win rate for a guy like this can be a little misleading, but I did want to point it out, 27.5%. That is the highest of any of the guys we're talking about. Yeah. Nuts. But he's also only playing on pass rush downs. He is coming on the field very fresh. But like future Philadelphia Eagle potentially in the making, where it's like, how did Howie Roseman get this guy? Right. And in that rotation, he could be absolutely lethal. I did also want to shout out, I talked about that spin move. I also noted, again, this was NC State. He hit this tackle with like the meanest stutter step ever. And I mean, this guy basically fell back onto the ground just because he was fully expecting, oh, he's going to go to the speed. He's going to go to the speed. He's going to beat me on my outside shoulder. And just like the stutter step just had this guy in a blender. And it was like, I don't know if I've ever seen someone not make contact and yet make someone look so silly. I don't have the time code on that, but I'll put that in the description.
They had elite tackles last year at NC State. Anthony Bellin, Jacarius Peak is a really good player this year, too.
Yeah, he was on the right side, so I think it was against Pete. So it was, but honestly, Belton, maybe I have to double check, but yeah, Belton kind of had some feet.
Peak's one of the best tackles in the ACC right now, too. So, I mean, either one of them, and those were two probably NFL players right there he hit that spin move again. So,
and there's a lot of guys on this list where, like, okay, they're in the NFL tomorrow, let's just say hypothetically. I think there's some guys who could hold their own. And we're talking about a specific role here for David Bailey, but like if he became a designated pass rusher tomorrow for, I don't know who needs an edge rusher right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars. He just became their third edge rusher. He became their Arden Key replacement 2 years late. Yeah, dude would be productive. Dude would put up numbers. Like I legitimately think he can already do that.
Oh, Fast Draft has launched the Rabbit. It is our full best ball tournament, but it's done the Fast Draft way. 20-second time clock, just 15 rounds, 10 teams. That means we're going out and drafting 150 players total. Don't need to know the fourth receiver on the worst team in the NFL. Don't need to memorize the Week 17 schedule because it's total points, and you can follow your team's performance in the standings throughout the year. Because these drafts take just 20 minutes, a lot of casual people are finding this game. They're finding best ball for the first time, and also a lot of hardcore best ball players are loving this because they want a new place to play best ball with exploitable ADPs. That just happens to be a lot of fun. We've stumbled upon something here with this Rabbit tournament. We're very proud of it. Hope you check it out. First tournament, already 30% full after 1 week. So we're on to something.
But let's get on to the top 5 now. I got Tariq Sapp here at number 5, 6'2", 272. And I said it earlier, like 6'2's like almost kind of becoming my preferred build, especially this dude. I mean, there are, and I'm going to say this about a couple other dudes here. There are some people who are put on earth to move people. They can either do it with their words or they can do it with their muscle. And Tariq Sapp is put on this earth to move people out of his way with his physical ability. Like, this guy is ridiculous, specifically in the run. I mean, this guy is absolutely strong as an ox. And he's one of these guys where like position alignment could be really kind of fun. The pass rush profile, kind of jumping over to the negatives, is I still think he's a work in progress from a pass rush standpoint. So outside the tackle, we'll see TBD. That let me see 2025 before I'm saying all that. But like head up over the tackle and 3-tech, I think you could have a lot of fun here. Kind of shades of Darius Robinson. And again, like the top 5, all these guys, kind of that kind of stuff where early downs probably over the tackle, passing downs, you want to probably move them inside. But I'm also encouraged by his hand placement and the hand fighting in general. And again, but his power plus the fact he's 6'2" and he's just naturally going to win with leverage. I mean, this guy's going to be a monster. Again, talking about, hey, hypothetically put these guys on an NFL roster, complete opposite role of what we talked about with David Bailey. But if you needed like an early down run defender, I think Tariq Sapp could honestly step in and be somewhat valuable there. So wins with power, wins with leverage. That's a 1-2 punch to at least be like a high floor contributor, live in the league for a good bit of time there. For me, at least how I see Tariq Sapp.
Yeah, absolutely. I had him exactly number 5 too, like you. So like we agree on that right there. I think he's a very good player, man. He had a 90.4 PFF grade last year. He was 10th among all edges in the country, 2nd among returning edge rushers in the country. He's a former D tackle at Florida. He even plays a little bit on the inside, can play on the outside too. He's played mostly on the edge in 2024, but he and Caleb Banks, whenever those two are on the inside together, it's a nightmare for interior offensive line. We'll get to Caleb Banks, I'm sure, in a little bit with our D tackle side of it. But he was 88.7 run defense grade, was 4th in the country, tied for 4th in the Power 4, 13 tackles for loss or no gain, and then 82.2 passes grade too. I agree with you. There's still more to develop there, but still 80 plus grades both as a run defender and passer. That's really good, right? He's not unplayable at one or the other like some of the other guys we talked about on this list already. And I think he's got decent length despite being 6'2", which is great. Like you said, he's got natural pad level and then good enough length too. And the strength, man. I mean, he knocks offensive linemen backwards and it stacks these in the run game, especially. He stacks and sheds as well as almost any edge rusher I've watched so far. I am a huge fan of Tariq Sapp, and maybe not a first round pick. Maybe doesn't have the measurables that teams are looking for to go in the first round. But getting this guy in day 2 of the draft as as a really good run defender who's already shown to be a capable pass rusher in the SEC, as a versatile defensive lineman too. I'm excited by the potential that Tyreek Sapp has.
Yeah, and to your point, especially with the pretty solid PFF pass rush grade there, he is almost like the maxed out version of if you describe a player as like high floor run defender, and then he wins with power and motor. That's like the only two things he wins with is power and motor, but like he does it to the umpteenth degree. So he's like better than like a Gabe Yakas, who kind of maybe wins in some of the same ways. Not fully there, but like just using that as a pseudo example there. But no, really fun player, and as long as the arm length checks out, like this guy's going to be an absolute leverage monster.
Right.
On to number 4, another behemoth of a human being, LT Overton. Overton's a little bit of a frustrating case, though, because the other guys in the top 5 don't really have like hip or ankle flexion. They don't have that a whole lot of flexibility. Like LT Overton for 283 is like way bendier than any person on earth at 283 pounds should be. So it's kind of nuts there. But the one big negative is like he's just not explosive. Like the first step is going to leave a lot to be desired. And then like closing speed, just not really there. But you name it, he brings everything else to the table. And again, this is another one of these guys where like if he folds inside, I think you see his athleticism a little bit more. And you talk about his natural flexibility. Again, stunts, twists, this guy could be an absolute handful. But you're getting a guy with alignment versatility. He has literally played up and down every spot on that defensive line for Bama. Not to mention he does it in the SEC. He does it for Bama. So that's a great, kind of chip on his shoulder. I think if he came out last year, probably a second round pick, but like really productive second round pick, probably in that same kind of bucket as Landon Jackson, which you kind of get high floor, all that sort of stuff. And then huge lower half. And I mean, this guy is an immovable force in the run game. So I like a lot of what's there. I just like wish you could just put a little bit of like lower body, or not really lower body, but like first step explosiveness. If you could just add a little bit of juice to LT Overton, like there could be an argument for where he's like maybe edge 1 in this class, but I just don't know if he's that explosive an athlete, which then kind of takes us to, if he's 283, is 270 the number? That's still pretty big. And it still comes with a lot of flexibility with where you line up the defensive line. But is that maybe the 13 pounds we're missing here for him to get a little bit more juice off the line of scrimmage? He's going to be an interesting watch once we get to like Nick Scorton. That was kind of the talking point around him. And then he shows up at the combine 259. And everyone who was kind of concerned about that first step, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, at 259, we should be good. So I wonder if that, maybe the combine, even just working the system the right way, plays into Overton's favor.
Yeah, I would love him as I think a 3-4 defensive end might be the best role for him if he's going to play at 280 or something like that too. But I think we might have the same exact top 5. I'm excited to see what you have for 3, 2, 1. But I feel like we have the same players. Wonder if we have the same order in top 5. But I have Overton exactly at number 4 too with you. It's interesting because he was a top 15 recruit coming out of high school, went to Texas A&M initially, and then didn't do much at A&M. Kind of looked like a recruiting bust in his first 2 years there. Only had a 61.5 PFF grade across his first 2 years at A&M. And then it feels like there might be a bigger conversation to be had here, but Texas A&M doesn't necessarily –
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, like Walter Nolan kind of looked like maybe a bust. He was good at A&M, but not great. He was the number 1 recruit coming out of high school, so he wouldn't live up to that. Then he goes to Ole Miss, is one of the best D tackles in the country. Nick Scorton, amazing at Purdue, goes to A&M, and is like, okay, he's a solid player rather than a spectacular one. And then, even like Shamar Stewart, I know he didn't transfer from anywhere, transfer to anywhere, but he's a guy, too, that I felt like, okay, he wasn't really, didn't show off his true potential at A&M, too. I think, I'm not saying Mike Elko's not a great defensive coach. He's a great one. But I think the scheme at A&M is so designed to stop the run first that guys are, when they're rushing the passer, they're stacking the lineman first to see if the quarterback's going to hand the ball off. And when he's not, then they go after. Instead of pinning your ears back and just going right after the quarterback. So that's the problem with that scheme, and why I think LT Overton, like Walter Nolan, when they transfer out of there and they go to a scheme that says, hey, just go get the quarterback, he's a lot better, right? So I think I'm with you. I think he's a guy who's a very powerful player. 18% pass rush win rate last year. I was top 30 in the country. 82 run defense grade 2. I was 25th in the country. And then he's one of the 15 most valuable edge rushers in the country last year, too, according to our wins above average metric. So big fan of him, former 5-star recruit. And I think he kind of blurs that line like Tyreek Sapp a little bit between a D tackle and an edge rusher. But as maybe for both of them as a 3-4 defensive end, that might be their best role long term. They could be a very, very solid player there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you every step of the way. And you beat me to the point on the A&M thing. And I think I talked to you, and I think I even mentioned it to Dalton. But yeah, I almost wonder, and a big part of it is like sometimes in college football, like the ability to scramble as a quarterback it adds a ton to an offense. It's just like it's like a game-changing dimension. I almost wonder if Elko's like, no, you will not break. It's almost like special teams where you're like taught, like, stay in your lane. Everyone stays in their lane. There's 0% chance that somebody's going to like be able to find that gap and then make the big play. And I mean, you want to rush with lane integrity, obviously, in mind, but I feel like Elko has really got to be emphasizing that to where there is not that creativity, because especially like Shamar Stewart, crazy athlete, but not the most creative pass rusher, you know? So, and I was someone top 10 prospect for me. So, you know, I do wonder how much Elko is kind of having a hand in that mix. So
I wanted to point out real quick, I'm not, and you and I are both not saying Elko's not a great defensive coach. He's proven
Notre
it.
Dame fan here. No, Mike Elko is the man. He was great
at Duke and at obviously now A&M too. He's doing a terrific job with that defense, but I'm just saying it's not leading to the gaudy production that you usually see for first round prospects. It's still leading to great defenses overall. And I think the way he coaches the defense is instead of having star players on our defense, we're going to have a collective unit together that plays very well, which is great for winning ball games, but not necessarily best for producing, you know, top 15 picks in the NFL draft.
And sometimes with the defensive-minded head coach, I feel like, especially in college, where they have a little bit more control over the offense than like if you're just a defensive-minded head coach. Marcel Reed as their quarterback, it almost feels like that's the type of quarterback he doesn't want to play. So he's like, that one gives me headaches, so I'm going to have one of those. It almost kind of feels like maybe that's the proof of the pudding. But I'd be curious to see like the rushing or like the QB scramble and perspective versus Elko defenses versus non. Like, is that a thing? It'd be a kind of tough one to quantify. So I'll have to put my head to that one.
I'm sure they don't do well, man, because Torrey and York, I don't know when you do your linebackers episode, but he's one of the best QB spies in the country. So I'm sure rushing quarterbacks don't do well. And I'm sure that's actually a great point you just made right there too. Like, that defensive line faces Marcel Reed every day in practice. Like, they're probably used to, you know, having to keep an account on him breaking the pocket or anything like that. So maybe that's another reason why they're so used to a mobile quarterback in practice that on game day they're more scared of mobile quarterbacks when really they should just go right after them.
And this didn't mean to turn this into a Texas A&M propaganda piece, but you almost wonder then without like Reed full time, you know, it's not Connor Wegman going into the season as the starter. We know it's Marcel Reed. Mm-hmm. Now him practicing against that type of coaching philosophy, what's he look like as a pocket passer this year? I don't know. We might see some big strides this year. A&M, hold on, folks. What's this over under? Go check out the PFF SEC preview and you'll find that answer out. Boom, there's a plug for you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go on to edge number 3. Speaking of SEC, Chadwick Falk. Another one of these guys who super young, won't even be able to legally drink a beer when he gets drafted, assuming he does come out this year. But, you know, listed at 6'6", 288. I've heard that he's probably closer to 6'2". So if you're telling me this guy is 6'2" or 6'3", with all the power this guy has, oh my God, draft crush inbound. And he's just one of these guys that like is the second, you don't even if you don't have it like highlighted the player you're watching in the All-22, you're like, oh, who's that guy? That guy looks like he should be playing on Sundays. Absolute monster of a human being. Doesn't budge off the line of scrimmage, especially in the run. Like, this guy gives up 0 inches, and he's got a couple reps where like throwing folks aside. And he's also got these big, powerful, meaty hands that when he gets into the chest of an offensive lineman, like you feel it damn near through the screen watching it. Like, it is really, really impressive, especially considering last year you're talking about a teenager. You know, you guys have a great running bit about, I guess it's NFL SC, a great running bit about Ryan Williams. Every time he scores a touchdown, somehow he gets younger. Like, it almost, it could almost be said about Chadwick Falk. He has these plays where you're like, Jesus Christ, like, why is this kid that's not even 20 doing this to kids or to older men? So, anyways, get back on track here. Really great length to go with that power. And I love his hands again. And like, for someone who is so young to know how to use his hands, to have that pop behind it, that's a great sign. Another one of these guys, I just like him a little bit more than Tariq Sapp, and again, a little bit younger, so that's kind of part of why he gets the nudge here. But another one of these guys who, like, pass rush plan is like, I'm going to go through you. You ready for this? You know, and that's kind of, and his motor is going to go until the whistle goes. I'd be curious to see, like, with the combine testing, what kind of speed, what kind of bend maybe does he have? It'd be interesting to see if he adds that element or could show any sort of that, even with just like combine testing, right? Like, this guy gets a sub 7-second 3-cone, like, everyone, like myself included, we're all gonna be like, holy, what? This guy can do that too? You know, it all of a sudden changes the kind of complexion of him. But even just as this like high floor, again, I said it with Tariq Sapp where he's kind of the upteenth degree. Sorry, that's Chadwick Falk actually to the absolute max. If he changes nothing else, he is this insane run defender who can basically play 3 downs because of that, who with his power and his motor and his hands, you can have him out there and be a somewhat productive, pass rusher. So big fan of Keldrick Falk, and it's mind blowing to watch him last year and be like, how old is this guy? Like it's unbelievable.
I think we might have the same exact top 5 because I also have him in a
alert. We do. That was what I saw when I finally got the graphics from Matt. I was like, I was trying not to look, but I was like, oh, look at that.
Yeah. So I think, so it's interesting because I love Falk too, man. For the same reasons you just pointed out right there. He's just a guy. I like we'll get to my other guys that didn't make your list too in a second, but like I like 10 through 4. Like they're all good. I think they're maybe Overton and Sapp can maybe sneak into the first round, but they feel to be like second round picks right now. I think the top 3 of the guys that we're talking about, and starting off with Falk, they all feel like top 20 almost locks to me. Like I feel like these are 3 guys that I will be very surprised if they're not top 15, top 20 picks next April. I'm a huge fan of Keldrick Falk, and he had an 84 PFF grade last year as a true sophomore. That was like 16 points higher than what he showed as a freshman. So we love the development there. Maybe he has another jump in his junior year too. And then 8th most run defense stops last year. And the pass rush grade was like a 72, which is like solid, nothing great. But it's worth mentioning he had 9 sacks and 45 pressures last year. Both of those were in the top 20 of the Power 4. So he's a very productive pass rusher, just not as efficient as some other guys in this class. But I'm all in on Keldrick Falk, man. I really do think that he and the next 2 guys we're talking about are all going to be top 15 picks probably NFL draft.
And you're also talking about guys who are all juniors too, which is definitely a big, kind of feather in their cap. So no, I'm with you. I mean, and you look at these top 3 guys, spoiler alert, Keldrick Falk, it's Ruben Bain Jr., and TJ Parker. All 3 of these guys are like, I could just see a head coach pounding the table for these 3 guys too. Like and that's part of another reason, not that you can fully quantify that, put it in your rankings and add it to a spreadsheet and get a grade for a guy or anything like that. But it's just like when you see these 3 guys play, you're like Dan Quinn, Mike Tomlin, not that the Steelers need any more edge rushers for God's sake, but like these are the guys that are going to be pounding the table for Keldrick Falks and so on and so forth. What were you saying?
I was going to say, last year I was a huge fan of James Pierce Jr., for example, but the size was a question mark. All 3 of these guys we're talking about right now, these are powerful, powerful players. Like you have no questions with play strength at all for either of them. It's 6'6", 270 for Keldrick Falk. Like that's legit NFL size right there. So, I don't think there's enough question marks about the 3 of these guys right now that I would see them falling out of the top 20 of the NFL draft. I think all 3 of these guys have NFL size, NFL traits, and production too. These 3 seem like pretty sure locks to me to be first round picks.
100%. And with that said, Ruben Bain Jr., if there's someone who's going to unseed my edge 1, I think it's probably going to be Ruben Bain Jr. Because you look at the 24 tape, and like that alone would probably put him somewhere here in the top 12. Like that would probably put him on, day 2 radar, just because you're like, whoa, 6'3", 275. And like, okay, there's something there. Then you watch the 23 tape and you're like, holy God, this freshman, like, how did this guy, like him? And then I haven't done my offensive tackles yet, but like Francis Mauigoa, it's like, who are these freshmen showing up and just kicking ass off rip, starting for this, power forward, what's the word to put it? I guess top contender of the ACC, not necessarily the best team, but they're kind of in that mix. But dude, Ruben Bain Jr. is a fun one. And he is coming off a bit of a down year, which is still to say 72.3 pass rush grade, 82.7 PFF run defense grade. Oh, that's your off year? All right. But another one of these guys who maybe becomes the 3-4 defensive end. I'm okay with it either way. But I think he's got fast hands and fast feet, and that's kind of maybe a little bit of a separating factor from some of the guys, right below him. And part of the reason that, because I like Keldrick Falk a lot, but I think the hands and the feet, especially in 23 for Bain, are just a little bit faster, which excites me a little bit more about what could be there as a pass rusher. But big, physical, strong guy with a ton of pop in his hands. The main thing for me is like, if this guy's healthy, like I have no doubt that he's going to wreck shop this year in 2025. It's just, hamstring calf injury. That's one that can linger, or it can be re-aggravated really easily. So that's kind of the big concern. So I don't want to call it a projection, but if that does pop back up, then, it's going to be hard pressed for him to be number 2 again. But like everything we've said about Keldrick Falk, and then a little bit more to the pass rush profile, especially on the interior, where this guy's athleticism, I think, really shows against guards and centers. So big fan of Ruben Bain. It's just going to come down to like, which degree of Ruben Bain do we get, 23 or 24?
Exactly. Yeah, I would have had him, if he was fully healthy last year, he could have been edge 1, I think, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that calf injury that made him miss a few games, and he just didn't look the same after the calf injury when he was playing too. So But still, he was a great player. And I know the stat I love going back to him was in his true freshman year, which is really the tape you should watch from him. He was fully healthy. He had an 89.3 pass rush grade that year. Among Power 5 true freshmen all time in PFF, the only one who was higher in his true freshman year was Myles Garrett, who's the best player in the NFL, you could argue right now. And then behind Ruben Bain, behind him on the list, Harold Perkins, who had an unbelievable freshman year at linebacker, pass rush grade at LSU. And then after him, Nick Bosa, Dexter Lawrence. So we're talking like, okay, these are all defensive lineman-wise. They're throwing out Howard Perkins Jr. because nobody knows what he's going to play at the NFL. But Garrett, Nick Bosa, Dexter Lawrence. So that's kind of the company that Ruben Bain was in among true freshmen. So just an incredible player. Still was very good last year, even with the calf injury. Over the last 2 years, 73 pressures, even though he's missed a few games. That's third among all Power 4 edge rushers. 17% pass rush win rate over the last 2 years. That's fourth among returning Power 4 edge rushers. And then 82.7 run defense grade. Got a lot better as a run defender last year, too. He's 6'3", 275 pounds. Can line up anywhere on the defensive line. And if he's fully healthy this year, he could absolutely become edge one in the draft and remind everyone of just how elite he was in his true freshman year. If he could bounce back to that kind of level as a junior, he could, definitely be a top 10 pick in next year's draft.
And again, he fits the mold of like my edge, like what I want these guys to start looking like. 6'3". He always is winning with leverage. And also in that freshman year, for someone who's 270 plus, like really nice closing speed. I felt like and it's just that ability to kind of flatten your back and just go make that play. And, it's some of that's just like explosiveness, right? And that's just something you kind of wish you had a little bit more of with LT Overton. Again, just kind of, I like a lot of these guys, just where these tiers and where these breaks are coming from. The other thing too, even as a freshman, I felt like his eyes, he did a really good job always locating the football, especially against the run. And I do think last year was probably a little bit better against the run, but some of that just the more you do it, coaching, all that sort of stuff, your eyes start to look in the right spot. But even as a freshman, I was like, dude, you are not supposed to be that solid and be able to find a ball carrier that easily. So
right.
There's a lot of natural instincts with him and a ton of natural talent. That then brings us to TJ Parker. And like, not to oversimplify things, and Jared Verse wasn't my edge one, but like if somebody's like, oh, I don't know anything about TJ Parker, he's more akin to a Jared Verse than I would say he's like akin to, a Dallas Turner or someone else in that draft class. I
like that comp a lot, actually. It's a good comp, yeah.
Yeah. But like linear explosive. And another one of these guys where like once his hands are on you, good luck. And he's another guy who's like consistently fighting with his hands. See, he's one of these guys who, like, the pass rush repertoire, I'd like to see him add an inside counter more consistently. I don't think the move set is like, whoa. It's just he's got a great first step. He is fully motivated to go through you. And if he doesn't get the hand battle right first time through, he's going to keep fighting. He's going to keep working. And eventually he will put you on your ass. And then you're talking about a super high floor run defender, 80.8 overall PFF run defense grade. He's set to hard edge. Also enough speed to be able to catch a backside, kind of, or a runner from the backside too. So the only thing that keeps him from being like, Micah Parsons, like, is this the greatest edge rusher of the last century? Is like, he's not the fastest. He doesn't have like all world bend or anything, but like for what he is as like this Jared Verse guy, turning explosive first step into power and just being a natural brute of a man, he's got that. So know what you're getting here. And that's really kind of, that almost sums up this edge class. Like speed rushers, we'll see about Patrick Bailey and R. Mason Thomas, but they're kind of DPR types. But if you want a powerful edge rusher, a dude who can pack a punch, boy, this is the draft class for you.
Yeah, and versus rookie year, probably have so many NFL teams looking, okay, we need to get like one of those power guys like him in here. So I think that's a great call, but I'll actually love that comp. And yeah, Parker's my number one edge too. He was phenomenal in his first 2 years. He's a great run defender at Clemson his freshman year. And then the sophomore year, he was a great pass rusher in addition to being a great run defender too. So he had 12 sacks last year that led all returning Power 4 edge rushers. Only one of 3 Power 4 edge rushers with 80-plus grades as pass rusher and run defender last year too. And then just a devastating bull rush, man. I mean, this guy legitimately embarrasses offensive tackles in a lot of plays last year. That pick game especially, he had the tackle going backwards almost every single play I remember in that game. So big fan of him. I love what I saw from TJ Parker. I would be pretty surprised if TJ Parker is not a top 10 or 15 pick in the draft, barring injury or anything like that. I see this guy right now. He's such a solid bet to be a top 10 or 15 pick. I think his power is devastating. He's got a very good explosiveness too, linearly. And I'm with you. The bend isn't great, but he's 265 pounds. You don't really expect that either. But I just think he's just a really, really solid bet to be, like I said, a top 5 or 10 pick in the draft, probably.
Another guy that has great eyes, locates the ball carrier, reads out plays really, really well. And Jared Verse, kind of to your point, like has made the case for why you draft a TJ Parker in the top 10. And like another one of these guys where, like, again, speed's not like the best part of his profile, but like even from a wide 9 alignment, God, if you give this guy a full head of steam, I think that might be a cheat code at the next level. Good Lord, you give this guy 3 steps before he gets to a tackle, turn that speed into a power. Good Lord, watch out. So he's a high floor player. But real quick, let's go ahead and showcase all of our edge rushers. Here is the top 12 for Max and I. So real quick, Max, let's talk about some of the guys who didn't have. Let's start with Michael Kamara, and I'll start with this. My girlfriend is from, or my fiance, sorry, still got to get in the habit of saying that. She's from Leesburg, Virginia, which is basically neighbors to Ashburn, Virginia. So Michael Kamara is probably my edge 13. And part of it's also I just got to root for the guy. And I mean, he's just an awesome story. And like the type of player, just like person that you want to root for, because he's at a couple different stops. And I worry a little bit about the size and the arm length, but he's made it work nonetheless. But let me hear your thoughts on Kamara.
Yeah, big fan of him. I think the size is a problem, right? And that's why he's a little bit lower on my list. But he's another DPR probably in the NFL. But led the nation with 67 pressures last year, transferring in from James Madison. Did not look like he jumped up in competition at all. He was still dominant. 28 combined sacks and hits last year. I was 3rd most in the country. Again, he's 6'1", so the length is going to be a problem for him. But there's so many guys in Indiana. Another one like D'Angelo Pons. Like, doesn't matter how big they are. Like, they are going to play their hearts out and be dogs out there on the field. And yeah, he's 265 pounds though, right? So he's not like he's a 6'1", 220-pound edge rusher. He's 6'1", 265, right? So he's got legitimate like size. He's not easy to push around in the run game either. So I think, again, I can guarantee you he's not going to be a first-round pick because there's no way that guy with that kind of size or length is going to go in the first round. But as a day 2 kind of prospect, I would love to get this guy in my locker room because of how hard he plays, how good his hand usage is. His pass rush plan is very good too. Quick first step too, even though he's 265 pounds at 6'1". I fell in love with his tape, and maybe it's me being a college football analyst rather than a draft analyst that you just start loving these guys that I always send Trevor all these guys and I'm like, dude, this guy rules in college football. And Trevor's like, dude, unfortunately he's not big enough or doesn't have the tools to play in the NFL.
Outlier here, outlier there.
Yeah, exactly, right. But Michael Kamara maybe he's out one of those guys for me, but I still see this guy as maybe a 2nd or 3rd round pick, probably a 3rd round pick in the NFL. But another guy that I would love to get in my locker room because of how hard he plays in the field.
I would draft him in the 3rd round simply because I wrote this down. The man wants violence. The man is hungry for violence. And like that mentality in and of itself at the edge position, like sign me up for that. And plus I got to root for my Virginia natives. Another guy. So actually, yeah, Kamara was 13. And then my 14 was Joshua Josephs. Let me hear what your thoughts on the Tennessee edge rusher.
So this is one where I said Kamara has really no chance of going in the first round. This is one where I think there's a world. I think Josephs is a guy that when you turn on the tape and you're so, when I watch Tennessee defensive tape, I'm so used to Pearson, Omar, Norman Lott being the guys who explode off the ball, right? And then you look at number 19 in Tennessee too, and you're like, dude, this guy's getting off the ball extremely fast too. So incredible run defender, 91.4 run defense grade last year. One of only 3 edges in the country with 85 plus grades as a run defender and as a pass rusher. The problem is, and like what you talk about some other guys, this is like Kenyatta Jackson, he only played like 350 snaps last year. And that was kind of a theme with Tennessee's defensive line because of how many guys they had. They just rotated him at all times. But explosive get off. He could blow up offensive line before they even know what hit him too. And listen, if with Pierce gone now, if he extends, if he's this good, if he has this same kind of grade and production that he had last year on 500, 600 snaps, this is a first round pick in my opinion. It's just how the tools this guy has is out of this world, and he was really good on limited snaps too. The only question I really have with him right now is can he sustain this on double the snaps, really? And maybe we'll see how much he plays in 2025. But I think Josephs is a guy that could really, really surprise a lot of people and emerge as a potential first-round pick next year.
Yeah, I mean, he could easily slot in where Mateo Uiagalelei is for me, right? Like, because maybe Mateo doesn't make that jump forward. Maybe he doesn't live up to that recruiting status. But Joseph, and also like really long arms, 3 forced fumbles last year, just kind of knack for being able to punch it out. And you said it, like, a little bit lighter in weight, but holds up against the run. The only thing really against the run that like sometimes he'll dip his head down and he's going to run into some issues there. But other than that, and that's kind of just like a nitpick. Main thing, the reason he didn't make my list was just kind of small sample size. Let me see it this year. But I get it. I'm being a hypocrite because I put Kenyatta Jackson in and I put Mateo Uiagalelei. I just want to take a shot on those guys. But again, it's a fluid process. And then real quick, one more guy on your list that I did not have in there, and that is Derek Moore of Michigan.
Yeah, big fan of him. He had a 23% pass rush win rate last year. I was 4th in the country. And then an 86.5 pass rush grade. I was 6th in the Big Ten last year, too. Very good bend at his size and a bull rush that can knock back offensive tackles. Actually, in that bowl game, a couple of reps against Caden Proctor where he had him, staggering back a little bit. If you can knock back, a guy, Caden Proctor, could be a top 10 pick in the draft and, has 370 pounds on his 6'7" frame, you're pretty powerful, right? So, obviously now Derek Moore with Mason Graham gone, with Kenneth Grant gone, with Josiah Stewart gone, he's going to be relied on a lot more along with Rayshon Benny, who I love, that D tackle. We'll talk about him in just a second too. But I really think Derek Moore is a really efficient pass rusher. Again, like Joshua Josephs, on a heavier snap count this year, if he can sustain that kind of dominance as a pass rusher and get a little bit better as a run defender, he could really rise up the board and be maybe not a first round pick, probably like a day 2 pick in the draft.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I also think he understands leverage really, really well. And that's kind of where you talk about like bull rushing Caden Proctor. I actually think Proctor, you hear 3.7 and you'd think, oh, he's got a killer anchor. That's actually probably one of the techniques that like specifically I think he needs to get better at. And dude, Derek Moore ate him for breakfast because of that. So it is really kind of fun to see that. And he's also one of these guys where like only 3 sacks last year, but then you see the pass rush win rate. I could see where that's just a fluke. And then he follows it up this year and he has 10 sacks and it's like, okay, there it is. Okay. He converted those pressures into sacks. There's my one big negative, and it's out of the way, and he shoots up the rankings. So, and then a couple more names I want to throw out here. Max Llewellyn, 6'5", 258, senior from Iowa. He was a DPR for them last year. He played less than 80 snaps against the run, so they kind of made it evident what his strengths are. His run defense grade wasn't terrible, but I think the team doing that says a lot. But really nice pass rusher with a wicked spin move and another guy with a nice stutter step. So DPR type up for grabs there. And then I want to talk about Trey Moore. He's kind of an interesting one for this Texas team. Going to probably play a little bit more off ball this year. And dude, they already have a great off ball guy who, maybe he's an edge rusher too. Maybe we're overlooking Anthony Hill Jr. I know Matt Miller of ESPN, he's got him in his edge ranking. So maybe we're hating here on Anthony Hill Jr., but it's going to be interesting just to see the deployment of Hill and Trey Moore. And they got a great defensive coordinator. He's going to scheme it up, and he's got 2 great weapons there. Any big thoughts on Llewellyn or Moore there?
I like Llewellyn. I think I'm with you. The run defense, I want to see him improve that. I want to really play more against the run this year. And then Trey Moore is a guy that I like too. He was a great player at UTSA, and then he transferred to Texas. So he was a really good player last year too. And then it's a really interesting move for him going to linebacker this year. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch that transition because I didn't necessarily look at him as a potential linebacker at the NFL level. Like I thought he was an edge rusher. So it's very interesting what they're doing with him. They already have a superstar edge rusher in Colin Simmons, who we can't even talk about in this episode because he's not eligible. It's actually funny. I would say, we talk about this is a great edge class in 2026. I would even say the top 2 NFL prospects at edge rusher aren't even eligible for this year's draft, and Colin Simmons and Dylan Stewart from South Carolina, who are both 2027 guys. So keep an eye on those guys next year because those, in my opinion, those are the 2 best edge rushers in the country right now. But I think it's going to be interesting to watch what they do with him with Moore next year because I just think, him next to Anthony Hill Jr. Could be interesting. I would rather have him as an edge rusher alongside Colin Simmons, but we'll see what they do with that defensive line next year too.
And I wonder if it's like ripples of like Jalen Walker and like I just wonder if that like maybe creates some curiosity of a DC to be like, oh yeah, if I move his alignment around, maybe that's something I can unlock something. I don't know. To your point about Stewart and Simmons, like good Lord, if you added these guys, you added those types of blue chip prospects into a class that I like TJ Parker, but I'm not sure I'm gonna see him as a blue chipper. But if you added that into this edge class, then we'd be like, holy cow, this is an all-time type of group. Yeah. But all right, there's 12 plus edge rushers for everyone. Now, this is where we shortchange everyone. Let's talk defensive tackles real quick. The reason there's only 8 guys here is just simply put, I don't think this is all that great of an interior defensive line class. To me, it's almost easier to start at number 1 because that's the first round guy right now. That's Peter Woods, and not only first round guy. If I had to rank it up right now, I think he'd be the number 1 player on my big board. I count for position value though, so like best pure football player, I'd probably tell you it's Caleb Downs, but especially with the growing like financial cost of interior defensive linemen, especially the good ones, I've always just kind of seen that as a not quite edge rusher, but like the next tier down, a premium position. I'd probably give Woods the bump on my big board, but I'm still finalizing that, so I'm not going to stick to it firm here. But I mean, I think he weighed in at 307 at the ACC Pro Days, but, listed weight of 315. And, dude, he doesn't look like he's carrying 315 whatsoever. Awesome movement skills. NFL-ready run defender. I think he could suit up tomorrow and be an anchor there on the interior. Really, it's just kind of flashes of a pass rusher, but there's still really nice pass rush, flashes there. So there's something to be encouraged when it comes to that profile. I think if we see more pass rush consistency, he can work himself into a conversation of like, where do we rank him up with Jalen Carter, Quinnen Williams, Mason Graham, these kind of top tier interior defensive line prospects. Now it's high praise, especially like Quinnen and Jalen Carter, but like I could see a world where a little bit more pass rush consistency, we could be seeing him pretty similarly to someone like a Mason Graham, who was one of my 4 blue chippers last year. I don't want to spend any more time on Peter Woods. I feel like I'm covering ground that's already been tread. But Max, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the Quinnen Williams comp might be the one I go with. I think he's a guy that just is unreal what he did for Clemson's defensive line. He played an edge rusher for half the year, and like at 315 pounds, like there's not a edge rusher in the NFL that's 315 pounds. You rarely see a 300-pound edge rusher in the NFL. So the fact he did that at the college level and still had over an 80 PFF grade last year just shows how incredible a defensive lineman he is. And he was misused completely at Clemson last year, in my opinion. Over the last 2 years, he has the best run defense grade and the best pass rush win rate among any returning power forward D tackle. That should tell you all you need to know. Like, he is just a really good player all across the board. Snap count is a little bit lower than you would like for him. So there might be some, because I think there's sometimes in the fourth quarter where he can gas out a little bit. So maybe you want to see the conditioning get up a little bit. But other than that, I'm with you. Like, he is at minimum a top 2 player in the draft for me right now, behind Caleb Downs, or if you want to put him number 1, I completely understand that too. Just the power, the agility. He has 6'3", 315 pounds. He's just a nightmare for opposing offensive linemen to handle. I feel like, Mason Graham, I always said last year going into the year, was the safest bet to be a top 10 pick in the draft. I think Peter Woods probably would be my bet to be the safest bet to be a top 10 pick in this year's draft too.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there. Yeah, I mean, he only played 11 games last year. I know he was injured, but I think he only missed 1, maybe 2 games worth of injury, but I can't remember exactly what the injury was. So that's on me for not having that written down. But yeah, it is kind of funny. So I have in my my notes and everything, where A gap, B gap, over the tackle, outside the tackle, like the alignments. And most of these guys outside the tackle, it's like 7, 4, 1. And then all of a sudden, Peter Woods last year, 122, and you're like, holy shit, what's going on here? But it's like, he's that good of an athlete. And sometimes, Clemson's just looking to get big nasties on the field and stuff their run, and that's their deployment. But I think the next level, man, like, do not move him off of that interior defensive line spot. I think he's going to wreak havoc. All right, here we go. Number 2, we got a little bit of a difference here. Not by much, but I got Zane Durant at 2. You got him at 3. I mean, I'm not saying he's necessarily Kalijah Kancey, but like that's kind of like what you want him to be, that 3-tech interior disruptor. Another Feldman's freak list, which I guess I didn't mention with all the edges, but Sapp, I think Overton even made it too. But all those guys really in the top 5 were in that, freaks list conversation. Zane Durant was one of the top guys in Feldman's list. And I mean, rightfully so. Super freaky first step. I think to me, it's just kind of ironing out some of the flashes, getting that more on a down-to-down consistency. And I am curious to ultimately see, anytime you get this guy who's sub 300, what does the run defense look like? But all in all, especially with no Abdul Carter there, you still got denied Dennis Sutton, but like without the center of gravity that is Abdul Carter and all the attention he comes with, I wonder how much of that focus now turns to Durant. But really, really like him. And he's like, he exemplifies what you want out of an explosive 3-tech. Yeah, maybe not great against the run, but like, going to bring the juices of pass rusher.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the Kalijah Kancey is exactly the mold that you're looking for. He's 6'1", 288, right? That's almost like a size of some of these, some of these edge rushers we talk about were like 270 pounds, right? So he's a little undersized for D tackle, but great player though. I mean, he had, 14 tackles for loss or no gain last year that led the country at D tackle, and then 28 pressures that was top 25 in the country too. And even though he's only 200, sub 290 pounds, really good power at that size, and obviously the quickness to shoot gaps. So he's a very disruptive player on that defensive line for Penn State. And, he and Dennis Sutton together is a formidable duo for the Nittany Lions and that defensive line next year. And I'm excited to watch him. But yeah, I think the size is the one reason why he was 3 for me. I actually, in my college rankings that I ranked the top 10 players at every position for college, I had Zane Durant number 2 for D tackle. Mine, obviously Peter Woods number 1. But so I think as a college player, he's number 2. I think the size and length concerns that might be, there might be other guys that maybe jump him just because of those concerns you have with him. I don't see him as a first round. Like, I think that he's not going to be a first round pick because of that. I would be very surprised if Zane Durant was a first-round pick. But also, I'd almost be very surprised if we get 2 D tackles going in the first round besides Peter Woods, right? So I think he could definitely be a second or third round pick that teams try to prioritize.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that off top. So again, not the greatest interior defensive line class. You and I had talked about it pre-recording. Peter Woods, that's the one first rounder for me, like slam dunk. Then honestly, for me, like players 2, 3, and maybe 4 could be day 2 guys. Like maybe Tim Keenan sneaks in there. But honestly, it's probably just 2 and 3. And 3 for me is a little bit of a projection. And we'll talk about Christian Miller in just a second. But then everyone else, like 4/5 and beyond, I'm kind of seeing as day 3 guys. So like it's not the sexiest of classes, but we'll see. There's a lot of these guys who are young and could definitely take steps forward. But Christian Miller, he's one of these guys who I'm hoping will take a step forward. He looks like your ideal kind of 2-gapping defensive tackle, long arms, long legs with good short area burst, which is really nice to see. And he does it all at 305 pounds. So encouraged by that. TBD as a pass rusher, there's just not a whole lot to see there. And part of that's just because like limited amount of opportunities, snap count of, 385, which it's actually only 10 less than Peter Woods, but in a rotation there at Georgia, and it's just not his year. It's not his turn. You know, they are big. These guys stay for all 4 years. And now this is the year where it should be Christian Miller's year to break out. So bit of a projection, but to me, he's got the looks. And what little I see, I think he's got that opportunity to be like maybe right behind Peter Woods, like him and Tim Keenan probably being like the run defenders of the class out of the D tackles.
Yeah, definitely. I think, after Peter Woods, it's very specialized for a lot of these guys. I think, maybe if I could redo these rankings, I would have had Miller at 4 instead of 5 where I had him. But he was a guy I was really impressed by, too, because I had him number 4 in my D tackle rankings for college. 82 PFF grade last year as top 15 in the Power 4. 84 run defense grade is the top 15, too. Then you mentioned it, limited reps as a pass rusher, but still impressive. He had a 11% pass rush win rate last year as top 20 in the Power 4, right? So good length, good power to hold his own in the run game, and then quick enough to slip past offensive lineman and pass rusher too. So, yeah, Miller, I could see Miller becoming DT2 in the draft next year. I think that's certainly a possibility for him next year.
But even then, we're still probably like if he takes the leap forward that I'm hoping he does, we're still probably talking about him going 45. Maybe gets into the top 50, but it's probably in the back half of that. But and again, you're drafting him for like a specialized role. I think that's a good point. Something else I wanted to hit on. Zane Durant, missed tackle rate of 21.4%. You talk about then Christian Miller sub 6%, and then my number 4, your number 4 as well, Tim Keenan, 5.3 missed tackle rate. Like Tim Keenan right now, like 326 pounds. Like this is a NFL ready nose tackle, like ready to roll, go out there and he's going to stop the run. The pass rush is limited to like winning with power and motor, and like he doesn't do it nearly to the degree of like a Falk or a Sapp or anything like that. So he's WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. But if you're looking for that guy, and again, that's kind of where maybe right now I'm kind of seeing him as like top of day 3. Like if you're a team that's just like, I need that nose tackle, and it's the first pick I have in the 4th round, this is my guy right here. That's kind of where I'm seeing Tim Keenan right now.
Yeah, this is your typical zero tech, just eat space in the run game. Like that's all you got to do. And that's what Keenan does, right? That's what he does great. So like 330 pounds, 89.8 run defense grade last year. The only ones who were above him in the Power 4 were Mason Graham and Walter Nolan, who are both first-round picks, right? Both top 20 picks in the NFL draft. So one of the 15 most valuable D tackles in the country last year. Again, the pass rusher is actually better than you expect for the guys that are usually in that kind of molded player, but he's not going to blow you away by any respect. But if you need a nose tackle who's going to eat multiple gaps in the run game, take on double teams and eat those double teams too, and then even make plays in the backfield as a run defender, as Tim Keenan III. So yeah, that's I had him item 4 on my list because I know what I'm getting in Tim Keenan, and what I'm getting is a really rock solid. In fact, you could be one of the better run defenders that we have at D tackle in the NFL, I think, very soon.
100%. And 162 snaps from the A-gap. That's the most of the guys on this list. So that kind of exemplifies what we're talking about. All right, now here's the discussion. Caleb Banks, like he's probably like the polar. He's the David Bailey of the interior defensive line class. You got him at 2. I've got him at 5. But let me just say, and I was like literally rewatching it while I was eating lunch today, just so I could like, all right, this is going to be the conversation point. I feel like the best of, like, you took 5 minutes, the best of Caleb Banks. You're like, holy cow, that's your second first round interior defensive lineman. This guy's an absolute behemoth, and he does it all at 6'5", 329. He's got a good first step more often than not. There's some snaps where I think he gets a little bit blown off the ball, but like there are some displays of like, whoa, 330 moving like that. That's insane. I think there's some change of direction skills there too. And then he's got a really nice pop in his hands, and he's got a couple of reps where, like, I think it was against Tennessee, where I don't even know if he meant to do it, but he popped the right guard right in the helmet, and it's like, damn, dude, like that is illegal in 37 states. You can't be doing that to people. But like, he's got a ton of power in his hands, and he can absolutely just move folks. Another one of these guys who's like put on earth to move people, and he does it with this just pure force. To me, the kind of negatives here, he's not quite Deion Walker, but he's one of these guys where, which even that's kind of a tough conversation, because Deion Walker in 23 looked like a first rounder, and Deion Walker in 24 was a different guy. But he's one of these guys where he is this big human being. And unlike Deion Walker's this guy who, like, at the snap, you're like, why is that 6'7" guy standing up? I just think he has a hard time getting low. I think it's in his hips. Yeah. He just doesn't have the flexibility to get enough leverage off the rep. Because I think once the ball's hiked, he like moves forward. He's not standing up, but he's just naturally a big guy, and he's already upright a little bit. So that's a little concerning. In that same game against Tennessee, 3 minutes to go in the first quarter, the guard just like absolutely got underneath him and displaced him. And it's like, dude, you're 326 pounds. No one should be moving you. So there's that. And then I think as a pass rusher, there's still some complexity to be worked out. Like, he's just a huge human being with a ton of power, and he can win with that. And he's got a good first step too. So sometimes he's just splitting guards, and like he's just splitting a gap, and that's that. So if we could add a little bit more nuance to the pass rush plan, that would be ideal. But like, first guy off the bus, no doubt about it. I'm drafting this guy in the 4th round just to have him be the first dude opposing teams have to see. So I'm intrigued. He's also a redshirt senior, so a little bit older for this guy who's like, I'm still waiting to see it. So I'm intrigued to see what this year looks like for Caleb Banks. But there is definitely some immense potential.
This is I'm banking on the potential here. Because I think in this D tackle class after Peter Woods, it's just so wide open. So I think Banks has the highest upside of any guy, which is why I had him 2. But I'm with you. Like, in my college rankings, again, I had him honorable mention in the top 10. So he's number 11 D tackle in college, but I have number 2 in the draft because I just think it's a different conversation you have with these guys. Yeah. In the college rankings, we're looking at, okay, how good are you right now? In NFL drafts, okay, how good you can be in 5 or so years, right? So I think Caleb Banks, like you said, though, he's got the size you look for, 6'5", long. Like, this guy could tie his shoes standing up, honestly. Like, it's crazy how long this guy's arms are. And then over the last 2 years, he has the most pressures among all D tackles in the Power 4, and then the second best pressure rate in the nation over the last 2 years with a 13% pressure rate. So he's productive as a pass rusher. My issue with him is the run game. I think I think the leverage is a problem for him in the run game. He has yet to have a 70 run defense grade in his career. I think it's blown off the ball way too much in that run game. But man, with his length and his pass rush ability, I could see he's a very high ceiling. I could see scouts being all over this guy. I've seen a lot of mock drafts of him going in the top 20 or top 25. I'm not there yet. I'm with you that it's Peter Woods and everyone else right now in that D tackle class. But if I'm banking on a guy to emerge as a first-round pick, I think Banks could, after Peter Woods, could be the one that has the best chance to become a first-round pick than anyone else.
And also another reason I kind of see, not necessarily Deion Walker, but not a nose tackle, more of a 3-tech, but God, like another one of these things where, like, him as a pass rusher from that alignment, just like having to deal with that type of size in your eyes if you're a quarterback, man, that is insane. My number 6, he didn't make your list, Dante Corleone. And I understand why he doesn't make your list. To me, like, when you watch the play in 22 and 23, though, that looks like a guy who's like a potential top 50 pick, top 75. Like, get this guy on my roster. Again, just a nose tackle, not really going to do anything outside of that purview in my eyes, but he has great leverage. He's 6'1", 330. He's a big, strong human being. And I mean big, not tall, big human being who naturally wins with leverage. So like Casey Hampton, like, this is almost exactly who I see as like Dante Corleone's, that type of archetype. The reason why I understand why you don't put him on the list is, last year with the blood clots, didn't really get to see him be the true, godfather that he is. So I'm hoping that we get back to that 2023, 2022 version of him, get him on the field and let him be that difference maker against the run. And he'll win occasionally with pass rush, again, just with power and motor for the most part. But a behemoth that wins with leverage. So it happens enough. So I understand why he's off your list, but a fun player to watch nonetheless.
Yeah, if it killed me not having him in the top 80, he would have absolutely been top 10. He would have been number 9 for me, probably.
Sure.
So I actually interviewed him a few years ago at Cincinnati. He's a great kid, too. The best nickname in college football, bar none. I mean, the Godfather is perfect. And I think for him, if you're wanting to watch Corleone, throw out the 2024 tape altogether. It's just unfair to judge him off that tape because, he was diagnosed with blood clots in the summer. and he couldn't resume any football activities until week 2 of the season. And then he played from there, right? So he didn't really have a real offseason because of that. And still, even with that, he still had a 73 PFF grade, which is like amazing considering what he went through that offseason to even get to that point. But over the 2 years before that, though, 93 PFF grade, 93.1 run defense grade, great pad level, great power, good explosiveness too. Hopefully fully healthy this offseason. And, I think he really could be great in his 5th and final year at Cincinnati. It's crazy that he's been so good in his career that he's been one of my top 10 D tackles in college football 3 straight offseasons now. Like you never, ever, you maybe see 2, and then they obviously go to the NFL after that. He's been a top 10 guy for me 3 straight years now. So big fan of Corleone. He absolutely would have been number 9 or 10 on this list for me, but just want to see him get back to the form that we saw in 2022 and 2023. But like I said, that 2024 tape, I would almost throw it out because I don't think it's even worth watching considering what he went through in the offseason.
Dante Corleone and Jalen Catalon, just like a perennial must-have in your top 10 preseason rankings right there. Real quick, I'm gonna hit on my last 2 that didn't make your list. Lee Hunter, who you did have at 7, so sorry, real quick. Lee Hunter at 7. Auburn transferred to UCF. He's there for 3 years. Now he's at Texas Tech, part of this huge spending spree that they had. I think really flexible for someone who is 325 pounds. I thought that was kind of something that jumped out at me right away. 58 run stops over the last 2 years, most in college football. That's really encouraging. I think he sinks really well. Another one of these guys who I have 6'4", but I've heard he's a little bit shorter than that. So plays with some pretty solid leverage. But to me, he's a little, as much as 58 run stops, sometimes it's a little boom bust there. Sometimes I think he gives up, some lane integrity and can give up some runs there. And I do think there needs to be some growth there as a pass rusher as well. So there is some nice plays, and the TFLs will definitely catch your attention and some really nice movement skills for someone that big. But I'm interested now back into the SEC, what that looks like and what maybe those finer points could be coached out of them.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch him at Tech this year. I think that's, I'm so high on them this year. I think they're my pick to win the Big 12, just spoiling it right now. I've just what they did is outrageous. Yeah, he's the production is crazy, right? You mentioned over the last 2 years, most run defense stops in the country, most tackles for loss in the country at 27 over the last 2 years. And then even the pass rushing, which I agree with you, is a work in progress, but still over the last 2 years, 49 pressures. That's second most among any returning power forward D tackle, right? So 6'4", 320. He can hold his own in the run game. Impressive movement skills of that size too. I'm a huge fan of him too. I think he could be a really good nose tackle that even brings more as a pass rusher than other nose tackles in this draft. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's one of the more underrated players in college football right now. I'm glad to see you made your list because he's on my list too at number 7. I think he's a guy that people aren't talking about enough right now. And he's a very, very good player. And a big reason why Texas Tech's defensive line, which was a problem last year, is now I think one of the 3 best in the country going into next year because you got him. You got obviously David Bailey, we talked about already. You got Romello Height coming in from Georgia Tech, who's a really solid player at edge rusher. And then Skylar Gill-Howard was one of the best D tackles in the country at Northern Illinois last year. He's there now at Texas Tech too. So what they did in the portal at defensive line specifically is outrageous this offseason. I think Texas Tech has easily the best D line in the Big 12, and it could be the biggest reason why they make the college ball playoff next year. I think is that D line.
And in that conference where it is typically all offense all the time, that D line is going to I think not necessarily change the entire conference, but that's going to be a huge difference.
Yeah.
Point of difference, I think, for Texas Tech versus everyone else. I'm with you there. But I also got to shout out, not defensive line, but Quentin Joyner. I cannot wait to watch Quentin Joyner. That offense actually get some fun. That's going to be a really fun team. I'm not a Texas Tech fan, but I will be watching a lot of their games. And then real quick, the last guy I had on my list that did not make it for you, Dominique Orange, another Feldman freak list guy. Really the big thing for him as a negative is conditioning, only 367 snaps last year and primarily wasn't on the field for passing situations. So there's some moments where you're okay, well, I wonder why, because there's some nice power that he can display there, but ultimately just not really a big enough sample size as a pass rusher to really delineate. And sometimes, again, the team does that, tells you everything you need to know, but prototypical size of a nose tackle, everything you want. And also, I think solid speed for 335. There's a couple reps where he chases down a running back from behind. So that's enough for me to see, again, kind of in that, as Steelers fan here, in that Casey Hampton mold, big physical 2 gap, going to stop the run. I think that's what Dominique Orange brings to the table. And then the 2 guys on your list that didn't make mine were actually my 9 and 10. So if you have any thoughts on Orange, feel free to shout them out. But then I'd love to hear your thoughts on Benny and Graves.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if you want to look at my top 10 D tackles in college football list, Orange is there at number 7. So he is a guy that I'm a big fan of too. And again, he would have been top 10 for me if we extended this list too. So big fan of him. Obviously the nose tackle, 320 pounds, but he moves better than you expect for him. He has a spin move that he deployed a lot at Iowa State. That was pretty lethal. That you just never see 320 pounders really utilize a spin move like that. And his 14% pass rush win rate in 2024 was 10th in the country. So it's really impressive production as a pass rusher in his limited snaps there. And then 80.4 run defense grade over the last 2 years is top 20 in the Power 4 too. So big fan of him. Again, he would have been top 10 for me if I extended the list. And as for the guys that did not make your list that I'm a big fan of, I think Rayshon Benny is in for a big breakout this year. I think he is a guy that obviously behind Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant last year, 2 top 15 picks in the NFL draft. But Rayshon Benny was really good last year. 84 PFF grade, 11th in the country, 87.5 run defense grade, top 15 in the country, elite agility at 6'4", 296 pounds. He has quick hands too. There was one rep he had against Minnesota where he legitimately broke the ankles of the offensive guard, and he didn't even touch him, and the guard was on his face. Like, it was crazy. Like, usually, when guards or offensive linemen are ending up on their back or on their face, it's usually because the defensive linemen, bull rush them to do that. But it literally was a move that just like Allen Iverson crossover. The guard went lunging and just completely missed him. And then Rayshon Benny got the sack off it too. So really, I think this is one of the guys like Joshua Josephs. This is one of my picks to be a breakout star at D tackle this year. I think he could really, really emerge. Now that he's a full-time starter at Michigan, and it's completely understandable why he wasn't a starter last year. We have 2 top 15 picks. So I think Rayshon Benny is in for a huge, huge year next year. And the other one, Aaron Graves from Iowa, I had number 8. He's my number 6 in college football. 12 sacks over the last 2 years, 82.3 pass rush grade over the last 2 years, most sacks in the country among returning D tackles over the last 2 years, and then the best pass rush grade over the last 2 years among Power 4 players. Got to get a little stronger in the run game. I think it's kind of like Max Llewellyn, his teammate at Iowa, but his hand usage is elite. He actually was a really dominant high school wrestler, so you can tell by his hand usage and how good he is there. He really, I think, could emerge next year. If he gets a little stronger in the run game, he's got to know in that D tackle class for sure.
And then 2 more names I'll shout out real quick. Grayson Holton from Oklahoma, another one of these guys for the Sooners I'm just keeping my eyes on. And then shout out to Mike Renner. David Oki, Abilene Christian, transferred to Arkansas, played over 800 snaps last year at over 310 pounds. So that's interesting. I wasn't able to get a whole lot of Abilene Christian tape watching done before we did this, but he's definitely a guy who's like top of my list now. Go back, check out, and maybe he'll make my midseason defensive updated rankings. But that does it. There's the interior defensive line, 8 through 1. And here, once again, is edge rushers, 12 through 1, plus a handful of other names that we talked about throughout today's video. But Max, man, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you so much for joining us, man. It's a blast to connect with you again. And man, it was fun to chop it up. We did a mock last spring leading up to the draft, but now today talking players, talking position rankings. I appreciate you coming on the show, man.
No, thanks for having me, man. It's been fun, man. It's crazy that we're only 2.5 weeks away now from college football. So I can't wait to see how these guys play this year and see who emerges, honestly, in this defensive line class.
And again, this is not like firm rankings. These are going to be fluid for both of us throughout this entire process. Really, these are kind of names to know as we, 2.5 weeks away from week 0. Whew, still got a lot of work to do ahead of me, so that's insane. But Max, I also want to give you the chance to plug anything that you're working on, any special projects there at PFF. I also know you guys are running a sale. Is that something that's still active right now?
It's still active. I don't know when this is coming out. I believe it's ending tomorrow, so it might not be. It might hopefully still active. But the PFF Plus sale is going on right now. 33% off, $40 off right now. Get it right now because it is a great deal that we're doing right now. So, excited for the year, man. And then, the college football show, me and Dalton are full steam ahead right now, making our official predictions very soon for the season. A lot of other really fun videos kind of get out right before the seasons too. Stay tuned for our playoff predictions. Not going to try to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I have made 2 official national title predictions at PFF, and I've nailed both of them. So I'm hoping I go for the hat trick this year. I'm not going to spoil one pick it just yet for the national title, but I'm hoping I go for the hat trick this year after picking Michigan and Ohio State the last 2 years. But it's going to be a wild year, man. This is for instance, I felt really good picking Michigan and Ohio State the last 2 years. I feel good about my pick this year, but man, there are like 5 or 6 teams where I'm like, I could see a world where they do it. So it's wide open this year. I'm really excited to watch it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only right answer is definitely Notre Dame, and there's no bias whatsoever behind that. But if you want to go 3 for 3, that's the pick right there.
They're in that grouping. I'm telling you, they're one of those teams, man. Listen, they made the national title game last year for 2 reasons: the run game and coverage, and those 2 are going to be elite next year too. So if CJ Carr is as good or even better as a passer as Riley Leonard, which I think there's a chance he could be, Notre Dame could absolutely make it a similar type of run next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully can unlock more of Jaden Greathouse, and then Malachi Fields. Hopefully is that big body X that, we didn't really get to see Bo Collins get the chance to be. I also think Fields might just be a little bit better. Not to make this Notre Dame propaganda. Max, thank you again, man. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Of course, dude. Appreciate it.
Till next time, we are signing off.